Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Benji-Sales live chat. It is so good to be back. It is so good to see everybody. How you doing today? Sorry I'm a couple minutes late. Just got done lifting. But I'm back. I'm here. I'm glad to be back. I gotta be honest, this has not been the most stacked news week this week. So we don't have a ton of big breaking news topics to talk about. Seems to be the trend in the industry right now for the last, 2 to 3 weeks. The news cycle has been pretty light, to be honest with you. We've had a couple cool news stories, but it hasn't exactly been a jam-packed last few weeks for gaming news. But there's a couple things we can talk about, a few things that we can dive into. So what are some stuff we can talk about this week? First of all, Remedy Entertainment has announced they are partnering with Rockstar Games to fully remake Max Payne 1 and 2. To be clear, these are not remasters, and this isn't going to be some quick, easy, thing. These are full-scale remakes. They're going to be done in Remedy's Northlight engine, which powered Control. I think that's a really impressive engine, to be honest with you. So I'm excited to see what these are going to look like. We found out via the PR that this has a full Remedy AAA budget. So it's not, like I said, some quick, little remaster. It's getting a full-on budget, and these are full-scale remakes. So we can talk about that, what it means for Remedy Entertainment, which has a ton of stuff in the works right now. That was just announced at big numbers on social media. So it seems a lot of people are very excited for that. So we can talk about that. The PSN download charts came out for March. I think some people are probably going to have some questions around that, particularly around Horizon Forbidden West sales. This has become a bit of a hot button topic on Twitter and on forums, so we can dive into that. Like I said, I have a feeling there's going to be some comments about that. Lego Star Wars has set a huge record for the franchise on Steam. The Skywalker Saga, we had gotten some evidence before launch. It looked like that game was tracking really well, particularly, for a Lego game. It did way above even I'll be honest, my most optimistic expectations for that game. It far exceeded them. This game did over 80,000 concurrent players on Steam. To put that into perspective, the previous all-time peak for a Lego game was 5,000. This did 13 times the all-time peak of the biggest Lego game before this. 80,000 is a huge number. Y'all, that's bigger than Mass Effect Legendary Edition's all-time peak. I mean, these are great numbers. So we can talk about Skywalker Saga, what it means for the franchise moving forward. Seems that's doing very, very, very good. So we can dive into that. And then another big topic is the Xbox Series X. I had made a tweet, I think it was about a week ago now, or right around there. I made a tweet and I was talking about how I was seeing a ton of evidence at retail that Xbox Series X was doing really well in March. And then Christopher Dring just came out a couple days ago and he said that in the UK, Xbox Series consoles were the #1 selling console in the month of March in the UK. That's right. Not only did it outsell the PlayStation 5 in March, it outsold the Nintendo Switch as well. So the top selling console in March. So that really backs up what I was talking about seeing here in the US, that Series X getting some very big shipments. So we can talk about that, what it means for Microsoft, what it means for PlayStation, and what it means for everybody moving forward. All right, everybody, if this is your first time ever as part of my live chat, basically the way it works, it's a stream, it's a show, it's 100% driven by you, your comments, your questions. We just talk about the latest and greatest in the video game industry here. There's going to be two ways to do that. First of all, of course, there is the free method. You just type a question, whatever you want. It pops into chat, and I get to as many free questions as I possibly can. If you want to guarantee that I get to your question, the way to do that is going to be the super chat option. Type a donation, whatever you want, pops into chat, and I get to super chats immediately. As always, though, don't feel pressured or obligated to donate into chat. It's just a way to help support me and the channel. All right, everyone, I think that's it for our topics. No big housekeeping notes here off the top that I can think of. We're going to go for right about an hour today, so let's get rocking. Let's get rolling into your questions. All right. I think we had like one or two super chats off the top. We do. First of all, we got a super chat here from Split End 89, a 2 best mod in the business, saying, "You are incredible, and I'm blessed to call you a friend." Well, Split End, that is incredibly nice of you, dude. Thank you so much. Dude, I'm blessed to be able to call you a friend. Listen, everyone, Split End 89 is seriously an incredible person. I don't shout him out just for the heck of it. Seriously, a great dude. So thank you, Split End, for everything you've done for me over the last few years. Not just modding and chat, but being a friend, being there for me. Split End's a great guy, y'all. Great guy. And he's doing great work over at Gaming Trend. So if you ever want to check out any of what Split End's writing, he does a lot of writing as well, reviews and all of that. Check him out over at Gaming Trend. Thank you so much, man. You rock. All right, Plastic Hearts Podcast here with a 5. Thank you so much, Plastic Hearts. Always supportive, every single chat. Benji boy, the GOAT. How freaking long I gotta wait for the Max Payne remake, you think? Tease next year at least. Okay, yeah, let's start diving into this. What does it mean for Remedy Entertainment? You know, I made a tweet about this that it kind of blew up. You know, nothing crazy. It didn't get like 30,000 likes or something like that, but it got like to 5,000, pretty close to 5,000 likes, and it made me really happy because that shows that there are other big Remedy fans out there besides me. And what I had tweeted out was that Remedy's upcoming release slate looks like a dream come true if you're a Remedy fan. They have Alan Wake 2 that's in development, which is, I believe, confirmed to come out next year, unless I'm misremembering, but I'm pretty sure Alan Wake 2 is 2023, right? Didn't they confirm that whenever they very first announced it? I just want to make sure before I move on here, because we're going to have to talk about their release slate because it's crazy. But I'm pretty sure that's confirmed 2023. Let's see. Yes, yep, it's coming in 2023. So clearly that is the game that's closest, right, from them, because that's the only one they've given a year on. So we have Alan Wake 2 hitting next year. That is, I'm unbelievably stoked. Everyone that follows me knows I'm a massive Alan Wake fan. I've literally been a fan since the day that game came out. I was one of those people. There wasn't a lot of us, but I was one of those that was playing Alan Wake at launch all the way back then. I've loved the game all this time. So we know Alan Wake 2 is hitting next year. They've also officially announced, actually quite a while back now, that they're making a Control sequel. I also adored Control. However, we've seen nothing on that, right? It was just an announcement. They said it's getting a bigger budget than the original Control. Makes me very happy. So we know that's another second AAA game coming from Remedy Entertainment. I'm guessing that that is probably going to come out 2024. 2025 at latest. Now, some people may say, how's that possible? If Alan Wake 2 is in 2023, they can't put out a second game in only 1 year. It appears, and we need to watch to make sure, but it appears Control sequel and Alan Wake 2 are being simultaneously developed. It looks like they're making both of these games at the same time. Now, I'm sure one of them has a bigger staff than the other, right? I doubt it's just split down the middle. My hunch is that more people are currently on Alan Wake 2 than are on Control 2, simply because that appears to be closer since it's coming out next year. So Alan Wake 2 is probably the main game that Remedy's all in on at the moment, but Control is clearly already well into development because they announced this a very long time ago. So they were already doing work on this. I think it was like a year ago they announced this. So that leads us to, when is Max Payne? If Alan Wake 2 is 2023, let's be optimistic and say Control's 2024, maybe 2025. Where would that put the Max Payne remakes? Here's the thing. It is going to take a while because this just started. In their PR, they said it's very early. They just worked this deal out. In fact, the whole reason this was announced, because I saw some people being like, where's a trailer? Why would you announce this so early? There's actually a key reason. Remedy Entertainment is a publicly traded company. They're not like what you see out of a lot of these independent studios where they're privately owned. They have investors. So the whole reason that this came out so early, the same reason that like the Control announcement came out so early, is they want to talk to their investors and they want to let them know, hey, this is what we have coming up. This is why you should invest in our stocks. This is why you should be, excited for our future. So that's why this is out so early compared to like a privately held company, which can just wait to show things. So when is it going to come? It's going to be a few years. It's going to be a few years. This isn't going to be until after Alan Wake 2. There's no way it's going to be 2023. Like I said, 2024 probably, or 2025. The fact that they're remakes helps a lot because you don't have to conceptualize it. You already have your story. You already have your basic levels, right? I'm sure they're going to change some things. It's a full-on remake. I doubt it's going to just be a one-for-one carbon copy with better graphics. They're probably going to make some changes, but it's not a from the ground up, we have to figure out everything to do with this IP. So when you'll get a tease? Next year maybe, but it actually might even be after that. Like I said, I think they're going to be all in focused on Alan Wake right now. Could be a while, Plastic Hearts. This game isn't coming out anytime soon, put it that way. My main question is if this is after the Control sequel or if it comes out in between them. That to me could go either way. Hard to say for sure. All right. We had one more super chat here kicking us off. Matt Duffy with a 2 super chat. Thank you so much, Matt. Thanks for always being in chat and being awesome. Benji, who you got? Hazmat or Burns? I'm so hyped. Yeah, so Hazmat Chimaev versus Gilbert I can never remember his nickname. Gilbert Burns. Yeah, this fight is going to be insane. I'll go quick on this for you non-MMA fans. Huge fight. This card this weekend's amazing, by the way. Very, very deep. From the prelims all the way up to the main event. Honestly, this is like one of the most stacked UFC cards that we've had all year. You know, maybe the main event or co-main event isn't as, appealing or something. I think they're great fights, but maybe they're not as appealing as maybe certain other ones to some people. But if you just look at the card as a whole, from the prelims all the way to the top, there are so many good matchups on this. I won't break down the whole card, but for Khamzat versus Burns, I've got to go Chimaev. Gilbert Burns is a beast. He's a monster. This is by far Hazmat's, by far his steepest test yet. He hasn't fought anyone on the level of Gilbert Burns. I believe Gilbert Burns is ranked number 2 in the welterweight division right now, while Khamzat, I believe, is number 11. So you can see huge jump up in competition compared to who he has been fighting. But the way he's completely blown through everyone and made it just look flat out easy, to be honest. He looks like he's barely even trying out there and just annihilating people. I've got to go Khamzat. I think that Gilbert will give him a bit of a bigger test than anyone else has in a fight so far. But at the end of the day, I still think Khamzat kind of dominates. I'm picking him by finish in late first round or, in the second. I do not think this goes the distance. Gilbert will put up some competition. You never know. He could win, right? We've never seen Khamzat fight anyone at this level, not even close. But I just got to pick Khamzat. I can't pick against him. He's looked way too insane. So thank you so much, Matt. Don't worry, video game people. I'm going back to your video game questions now, but I love MMA. Thank you so much, Matt Duffy. All right. Back to your video game questions. SD. When do you think PlayStation sales will be normal, or at least lots of stock? Yes, this is the big question on everyone's minds right now. And another thing, man, fanboys are so toxic on Twitter. Every single day with the VG charts picture, who is not reliable, comparisons, etc., is a little bit disgusting. Do you recommend block or mute? And what do you think of big people in game industry following those persons? There are some who are following those persons and giving likes to their tweets' thoughts. Oh, this is a really complicated question and a lot of depth to it. So let's break this down piece by piece, and I can give you my perspective on some of this as well, in terms of following people and the fanboys and stuff. I won't go super long on this. I'm not a huge let's all talk about fanboys, because that stuff just gets crazy, but I will talk about a little bit my advice and what I do. Okay, so when will PlayStation sales be normal? Right, so this is the big question. There's no way around it. This isn't being fanboying. This isn't, listen, you guys know at the end of the day, you can agree or disagree with me, but I try to give you my most honest sales opinions, right? I really do. I'm trying to be honest with you guys and as truthful, at least from the way I see it. Doesn't mean you need to agree with that. You can think I'm completely wrong, but at least know in no way am I ever trying to mislead you guys with this stuff. There's no way to debate it, in my opinion. The last 3 months have been awful for PlayStation console sales. We kind of knew that coming in, though, so no one should be too panicked because Sony themselves forecasted this. We had a huge warning sign, a flashing, blinking warning sign when Sony came out for their forecast for this last quarter, and we knew this thing's going to ship 1 million less units than the PlayStation 5 shipped the year before. I even made a tweet about this. You can even go back in my feed, and I warned people back then. This was months ago now. When they made that forecast, I said, buckle up. Shortages are not going to improve in the next couple months. They're going to get worse. Remember, people were complaining like crazy about how hard it was to find a PlayStation 5 months ago, and I warned them, this is not getting better. It's getting worse for the next 3 months. We have seen that play out. PlayStation 5 is massively struggling on selling units. Now, to be clear, this has nothing to do with demand. PlayStation 5 isn't selling a low volume because no one wants PS5s. Tons of people want PS5s. But Sony is having huge manufacturing issues, and it's really affecting them. PlayStation 5 is now starting to significantly fall behind PlayStation 4 launch aligned. We'll have to see how that plays out for the rest of the generation. This isn't doom and gloom. It's just been a bad quarter, and we knew it was going to be a bad quarter. Like I said, Sony themselves forecasted this. They knew it was going to be a rough quarter. So when will sales normalize? It's hard to say. It's really hard to say. I'm very, 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 very interested to see their forecast for this upcoming quarter. That's key. It's really important to me that we see an increase in shipments this next quarter. If they don't, if they forecast again like they did this last quarter, it's going to be a rough ride. I'm going to be honest with you. It's going to be very, very rough for Sony over the next 3 months again. I'm hoping, I'm optimistic. I don't know, though. No one knows but Sony because they haven't made the forecast yet. I'm hoping, though, that we see a bit of a bump. I don't think we're going to see anything crazy. I don't think you're going to see Sony come out and say, hey, we're going to ship 5 million PlayStation 5s next quarter. I'd love to see it. That would be a dream come true because I want everyone to sell well. I want the whole industry to be healthy. I'd love to see that. I'm not anticipating anything like that. To me, if they can manage to ship 1 million more units than they did last quarter, that to me will at least be a sign that things are moving in a better direction. So I'm hopeful that their forecast comes out and it's 1 million more than last quarter. I'll be honest, I'm not super optimistic that's going to happen, but that's my hope. If it's over 1 million more, dude, I mean, we'll be dancing in the streets. It's amazing news. But I'd be cautious. I would say at best, expect 1 million more over their last forecast. And maybe, not even that. So when it's going to normalize, hard to say. Could be a while still. We'll have a very good idea about this with their next forecast. It's going to tell us a lot, okay? So that's what to keep your eye on. We'll find that out soon. Now, in terms of like the fanboys and the toxic stuff on Twitter and people following them, this is a bit of a complicated issue because, to be honest, I follow a few people that definitely fall into what some people would consider like the fanboy warring camp. I do as well, to be honest with you, and a lot of people do because you may have like a nice relationship with that person, to be honest, right? I'm not going to name any names. There's a couple people that I follow that definitely like to console war a little bit, but they're super nice to me, right? So I follow them. They've supported me. They've said really nice things about me, so I follow them back. To be clear, though, here's how I handle it as somebody that isn't a giant media person, but has a bit of a following. I don't like any of their console war tweets. Don't do it. If there's a console warring tweet, I don't like console wars. I don't like that tweet. I don't click on it. I'm just like, whatever. Let that pass. You guys fight amongst yourselves, right? I don't go out of my way to follow people that get into console wars that don't support me. Like, there's not just random console warriors that I follow. And I'm not even saying all these people are console warriors, but I'm saying there's some people that I follow that I know that some of you would consider in that camp. I only give the follow back if they've been very nice to me, very kind. But like I said, I don't like any of their console war tweets. My advice to you about how do you handle it, I mute a lot of accounts, all right? I'm just going to be honest with you. I mute a lot of accounts. Now, I won't mute people for disagreeing with me because that's, silly. If someone has a different opinion than me, I'm not going to mute you over it. But if you're like constantly console warring on my tweets, like if I tweet something and it's just like almost every tweet you're in my replies fighting about something, I don't want that alert, okay, right? Like, I get a lot of Twitter alerts per day. I do not want the alert about you console warring, so you're going to get the mute. So I mute a lot of accounts. I recommend doing that. If you see people that are constantly console warring, hit that mute button. I don't block unless you're really toxic. And what I mean by that is like insulting towards me. Okay? That's the only way you're going to get blocked by me for the very, very most part. Otherwise, I'll just hit you with the mute if you console war. But like, it's hard to get blocked by me. My actual block list isn't that big. The only way you're going to get blocked is if like you're literally coming on my posts like saying you hate me and that you think I'm an idiot and things like that. Okay, I'm going to block you because I don't want to read that. But that would be my recommendation, SD. Most of them I would just mute unless they're being actually mean to you, like outright insulting and childish, then hit them with the block. Okay. I think we're past that. Thank you so much for that question. We had one super chat drop. Timmer72299 with the 2 super chat. Thank you so much, Timmer. No question today. Just wanted to show my support. Thank you so much, Timmer. Thanks for being in every chat. Thanks for being so awesome. You keep rocking. Keep doing all that digging up and amazing stuff you do on Twitter. And thank you so much, man, for always being so supportive. All right. Brad Myers. Do you think Microsoft could make a AAA Age of Empire campaign that goes through historical events or time periods with a similar format to Assassin's Creed or Rise Son of Rome? And if that goes well, maybe they could do the same with Age of Mythology. Interesting question, Brad. Here's the thing. I'm assuming you mean like not as in like an RTS style, right? Because there already is campaigns within Age of Empires, but that's RTS, right? I think you're talking about could they leverage that Age of Empires IP and name and make a bit of a different playing type game? Because you said, you know, similar format to Assassin's Creed or Rise, right? So you're saying, can you leverage that name, make it a bit of a different play style? It's a really interesting question, Brad, and something I'd never thought of. Here's what I would say. If you did something like that, I think it would have to be more of like a DLC or add-on to like a typical regular game. Because I think if you're going to go out of your way to make like a huge, giant, something that plays radically different than traditional Age of Empires, I would think you'd just want to brand that as a new IP. Because if it has a ton of access, you can just build that IP up over time and have it become its own giant thing. But it would be an interesting thing to explore maybe as a DLC for like a regular Age of Empires game. That to me is not impossible. I'll be honest with you, Brad, I would be surprised if Microsoft did that as its own separate game, right? Huge, giant, let's just throw a random number out, $30 to $50 million budget game, and they put Age of Empires with, you know, this Assassin's Creed or Rise playstyle. I couldn't see that because I think they just want to make it its own IP. It's an interesting question, though. I never thought about it. You know, I never, ever thought about that. So it's definitely interesting, but my guess would be like a DLC thing, if anything. I think we had a pretty big super chat drop. Let me hit that super chat really quick. We did. Highlander with a 20. Thank you so much, Highlander. Thank you for always being in these chats and always being so supportive. That's really generous, Highlander. Thank you so much. I had a financial advisor tell me if Activision deal goes south and the stock drops low enough, they could file Chapter 11. If that happens, could you see Microsoft getting the IPs they want? Do you think it could happen? Yo, this is a very interesting, very, very, very interesting question, Highlander. Because here's the thing. The Activision deal is getting a little interesting. Little interesting. For anyone that follows this, it's heating up. Okay? It's heating up. They're getting a bit more pushback from regulators, I'll be honest, than I expected. You know, I had originally talked about this back when it was very first announced, and people were asking me, they were like, do you think this is going to go through smooth? Do you think it's going to go well? Do you think they're going to get the acquisition? And I was really bullish on it just because the long history of most of these acquisitions going through. You know, I know that there's more pushback and changes going on with regulators right now. They're trying to make these deals harder to be done. But we saw yet again just another huge one, not near the size of this, but another big one just happened, right? When Amazon bought MGM. The vast bulk of the time, These things have been going through in recent years. But there has been a lot of pushback, actually, quite a bit. Now, at the end of the day, I still think that this is probably going through. From everything that I'm following, I still think it probably is. But I'll be honest, I'm not near as confident as I was before. What I will say, Highlander, if this doesn't go through, this is a disaster for Activision. Bad. Really, really, really bad. Like, I don't think people understand how much trouble they're in if Microsoft doesn't actually get this acquisition. Call of Duty sales have completely fallen off a cliff, y'all. I think Modern Warfare 2, the new Modern Warfare 2, right? We've had Modern Warfare 2 before, but the new one coming this year, I think that's going to be huge. I think it's going to do really well. Warzone is still doing really well for them. But y'all, I mentioned off the top, the March PSN downloads, Call of Duty, I don't think was even freaking on there. Was it on there? To put that into perspective, last year, Call of Duty Cold War was like top 2 or 3. Let me look at this, because I don't want to mislead you here, but if this is accurate, I mean, this is a disaster. This is an absolute disaster. Let me pull up the PlayStation blog really quick. They're in huge financial trouble if this deal does not go through. Let me see. PlayStation blog, top downloads. Where is Call of Duty? US. Dude, it's not. Call of Duty Vanguard in the month of March did not place in the top 20 on PlayStation in the US or Europe. Do you know how insanely crazy that is? If this doesn't go through, they're in massive trouble, okay? Now, will they have to file Chapter 11? I don't know about that. Their stock is going to completely collapse, though, yes. It is going to completely collapse. I think there will actually probably be a lot of layoffs. There's going to be some crazy stuff that goes down. So to be honest with you, if I'm an employee at Activision, and you would have to speak to them. I actually have spoken to some of them, and some of the ones I've talked to have been very, very optimistic about this Microsoft acquisition. I'm not going to tell you that every single one of them is, because I haven't talked to everyone at Activision, right? There's thousands of employees. But a lot of them are optimistic about this. If this doesn't go through, I'd be pretty dang scared if I'm an Activision employee, yeah. Could be facing layoffs, could be facing really difficult times there at the publisher. Yeah, it could be bad. Could be bad. Ironically, some senators are trying to prevent this for the well-being of the employees is the stated goal. I actually think it'll be a net negative to most people at Activision if this deal's not done. I wouldn't say that about every publisher, right? Like Take-Two seems to be doing really, really well. If you work at Take-Two, I'm not saying it's necessarily great for you if you get acquired, right? If you work at EA, I'm not saying it's necessarily great for you if you get acquired, because those are really well run and they're doing really, really well publishers. But for Activision specifically, I think if I'm an employee, I want Microsoft to buy us. So I'd be pretty worried if it doesn't. Whoa, I think we got Snowbike Mike in chat saying you are awesome. Yo, Snowbike Mike, what is up? Great to see you, man. I love everything you do. So positive, so hype. You are the man. Shout out to the Kind of Funny crew. If this is Snowbike Mike from Kind of Funny, I'm pretty sure it is. Huge fan. Huge fan. That's so cool to see you here, Snowbike. So thank you so much. And Snowbike Mike is also saying, happy Friday, everyone. Great to see you all enjoying the convo and supporting our guy. Dude, you rock. You rock. Huge fan, Snowbike. You're the man, dude. Seriously, I really appreciate you being in chat here. Everybody give Snowbike Mike a shout out. So cool, man. Thank you so much, man. Okay. Let's get rocking back to your free questions. Forzathon is back. Benji, been a while. What is up, dude? Great to see you. Xbox really making a start for some news on games, aren't they? Yes. Very much so. Do we really got to wait 2 more months for something meaningful? It's a great question here, Forzathon. I was just talking about this with somebody actually recently. Here's the thing. Microsoft right now has so much going well for them. Like so much. Honestly, we were talking about this, and in some ways right now, Microsoft as a business, if we're just talking about a business, Microsoft seems to have a much clearer direction for their future than what PlayStation does. And to be clear, I'm not sitting here telling you Xbox is going to outsell PlayStation this gen. That's not what I mean when I'm saying this, but what I mean is like when you look at Xbox's business, you know exactly where they're headed, what their plans are, what they're doing, right? They're all in on PC, they're all in on subscriptions, and they, really want to support streaming. Like, exactly, right? This is Microsoft's vision, this is what they're doing. Sony, in the meanwhile, they're really like kind of all over the place. They feel like a company that's kind of in between two worlds, right? They're kind of in between the old method where it was just sell packaged games, full price, that's your focus, and not a lot of games as a service, but we're seeing them evolve that way, right? Not day one on PC, but we're starting to see them put some games on PC later, right? Whereas Microsoft feels like they're fully on this side of the aisle, Sony is kind of in between, and I feel like they're still working themselves out exactly what they're going to do. What's going to be day one on PC? How long do we wait to go on PC? What exactly is our plan with subscriptions over the next 5 to 10 years? So Xbox has a lot of stuff that if you're an Xbox fan, you can be really like optimistic and like, happy about, because you feel like you're invested in an ecosystem that at least has a very clear vision. The one thing, though, that you do have to give Microsoft a bit of pushback on, these are just the facts, they have shown so little about their upcoming lineup. Now, to be clear, this is not just Xbox. Now that we've had Sony release a bunch of games, because they did, right? They released a ton of games in the last few months, right? We had Gran Turismo, we had Horizon Forbidden West, we had Sifu, which wasn't a first-party game, but they were partnered with to make it console exclusive, right? There was just like a steady release slate of games over the last few months. But now, they're a little bit, less shown. But if we're talking about Microsoft specifically, we've seen so little, right? In fact, we have seen almost no gameplay for anything coming up, right? Redfall was more of a concept trailer whenever we saw it. Whenever we saw Starfield again, it's just a concept trailer. We haven't seen that gameplay. Forzathon, the one missing wrinkle here for Microsoft, I feel, because I'm honestly very optimistic about just about everything else they're doing. They gotta start showing those games. So if they really do make us wait 2 more months, right, until June, it's got to be very impressive showcase. I don't think they can come out here and give us more of these conceptual trailers, right? We know Starfield's going to get a big showing, but it needs to be more than that. They need to be like, hey, here is some legit gameplay. Here is what you can legitimately look forward to, what our games look like. It's okay to have a few conceptual trailers for things farther out, but Forzathon, they do need to really show these games. Yes, the next one, if it really is 2 months, it's got to be a blowout. Got to be a blowout. Can't just be, here's Starfield and then more CG trailers for 5 other games. You know what I mean? So yes. Ash Reviews Game saying, hey, what is up? Javier saying, what's up? I think we had a super chat. Let me hit that super chat really quick. We do. Highlander here with a 10. Dude, Highlander, that's your second one. Holy cow, Highlander. That's very, very kind of you. Very, very kind, man. Very, very kind. The EU sent a questionnaire to Microsoft looking into their cloud services, as 2 cloud service companies in France and Germany are asking to look at Microsoft's terms. Yeah, that is one of the pushbacks. One of the pushbacks that is coming up right now in terms of the legislation and if they're going to block this. To be honest, one of the things a lot of people were worried about whenever this went through was going to be if they were seen as like a monopoly in the gaming industry. It seems the things that they're really focusing on are subscriptions, honestly. Like, honestly, that's the reports, is that a big element of what the pushback is how this makes Microsoft a player in the subscription play specifically, and also the metaverse, right? And that might sound weird. We might be like, as Xbox gamers or whatever, we might be like, the metaverse? Why would that be something that's like such a focus of this Activision deal? Well, that's because Satya Nadella, whenever he announced this acquisition, you can go look at the PR, he was talking about the metaverse, right? A lot of us think the metaverse isn't necessarily going to become this giant thing the way that it's been like described from people like Facebook, but in, the government, there is a lot of wonder about how that's going to go, and there's some people a little worried about one player dominating this space. Again, to me, this isn't enough evidence to block a deal like this. Sony has their own subscription service, PlayStation Plus, which has a giant amount of subscribers, almost 50 million subs. I believe their last count was 40-something million subscribers to PlayStation Plus, right? Even if the Activision deal goes through, I don't think that makes Microsoft suddenly a monopoly on subscriptions. It gives them a very strong place in the business, but not a monopoly. Same thing with streaming, right? There's a lot of people in the streaming space right now. Sony has their own streaming with PlayStation Now, which is becoming part of PlayStation Plus. It hasn't really done much, but there was Google Stadia. We've had Amazon mess around with Luna. Like, to me, these aren't strong enough things to block this acquisition, but that does seem to be the main pushback areas. Main pushback areas seem to be how employees are going to be treated, right? Because of all the issues that have happened within Activision. That's what you're seeing like Elizabeth Warren talk about, streaming and metaverse. These are the three things that legislators are kind of honing in on. Not necessarily like just pure revenue or how many games you're going to sell or how many exclusives. It's really around those three. Those three core pillars are the things that they're really asking about. Okay. Cool. Super chats are clear. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for all these great questions. We're going to still keep going for like another 30 minutes. All right. So we left off here with Javier. PS stock is very low last year in 2021. And when consoles launched, PS5 was breaking lots of records, but now PlayStation is in a wall. Yeah, we talked about this. Do you think this will be resolved when? I kind of answered that, so let's see if there's another element to this question. And this rumor of Microsoft paying for chips could be true. Yes, I believe that is true. And if that's the case, how Sony will resolve that? And when things became normal someday in the future, who do you think will be the bestseller every month? Ooh, that's really hard to say. And last question, when is Sony's investor call? End of April. And do you think something could happen in terms of acquisitions? Bungie was announced, I think, minutes before the investor call in January. Okay, so a lot of questions here from Javier, so we're going to try and bust through them here pretty quick, piece by piece. I already answered the PlayStation sales, when they'll be fixed. Genuine question is we don't know. The next forecast will tell us a lot. If it's very low again, don't expect this to be fixed anytime soon. Now, in regards to, do I think the rumor is true about Microsoft paying for chips? Yes, I absolutely think this is true. I can't go into too much details about this, but I have very much reason to believe that this is true. One thing to really keep in mind, Microsoft has an enormous amount of cash. And if it comes to a bidding war for chips, which we know has been the case recently, there's almost no one that can outbid Microsoft. A handful of companies. Apple, right? They can compete with them in terms of that. Google, they can compete with them in terms of that. Not much else. So if you have a small amount of chips that are available and they're basically going to whoever's willing to be the highest bidder, Microsoft's going to be a player there. No question about it. So do I think that is an element to this? Yeah. And besides just thinking about the cash money that they have, I have other reasons to believe that as well, which I will not go into. So I do think it's true. I think it is an element. How will Sony resolve that? They frankly, specifically in terms of outbidding Microsoft, they can't. It's not something that they can resolve. The thing is, though, is that we can hope that chips will continue to improve, so they'll just be more available for everyone, right? That is the hope. I don't think we're going to get to a scenario where it's just like Sony can't make PS5s because Microsoft's just buying every single chip. I don't think we're going to see that. We're not even seeing that right now. We're just seeing it be much, much harder. I mean, it's very, very likely that Microsoft shipped more consoles this last 3 months than Sony did, not just in the US, worldwide. That has not happened, I don't believe, since the Xbox 360 days. If that really happened this last quarter, which we have reason to believe, it's been since the Xbox 360 that happened. Only way that could happen is if Microsoft secured more chips than Sony. So I think so. Now, when things get normal, who do I think will be the best seller every month? I think PlayStation would outsell Xbox more months than Xbox would outsell PlayStation. In the US specifically, though, this generation is going to be a very close race. I was telling people that from the very beginning of this generation. People forget the 360, we're talking US here, the 360 annihilated the PS3 in the US. Was not close, okay? In fact, it blew the PS3 out way more than the PS4 blew out the Xbox One in the US. That shows you how big like the gap was there. So the fact that Xbox One, even with all of its issues, remained fairly competitive with PlayStation 4 in the US, this gen's going to be much closer. Now, which one's going to end up on top? It is very hard to say, but it's going to be a very close race between PlayStation and Xbox in the US. Worldwide, I just still think there's more demand for PlayStation. So if both were just fully stocked, fully stacked, everyone's on shelves, globally, I expect PlayStation to outsell Xbox most months. You know, there might be a few months in there, like if a Starfield launch, where you might see a worldwide, Xbox take the lead for that month. But most months, PlayStation globally, the US, though, very competitive. If both are fully stocked, that can go either way, in my opinion. Either way, Xbox some months, PlayStation some months, either one. And when's their investor call? I'm not sure. Not sure. I haven't looked at that yet. It's very, very soon, within the next few weeks. But I don't know if they've officially announced it, but it will be soon, yes. And it will be very interesting. And I'm not sure on an acquisition then. Yoda Soda. Could the Skywalker Saga become the best-selling LEGO game of all time? It could. Any sales predictions? So we mentioned this off the top. Huge performance on Steam. It's like hard to put into perspective how big it is. Y'all, it was so big. If you took every single LEGO game's all-time peak, every one that's on Steam, and combined them, I'm pretty confident LEGO Star Wars Skywalker Saga's peak was still higher than every LEGO game combined. Now, do I think that's going to be the case on consoles as well, right? It's bigger than every LEGO game combined. No, I think we're just seeing PC in particular really outpace the previous games. On consoles, though, I'm expecting this to be way up over any recent LEGO game, right? Keep in mind, and I actually forgot about this. I had somebody, remind me with some data that's, I can't talk about publicly, but Lego used to be huge back on like the 360 and Wii days. So is its launch going to match like Lego at its absolute peak, like across all systems? That I'm not sure yet. We're going to have to look at the data once it starts rolling in, but it will definitely be the biggest Lego launch in years. Very long time. It's been years since a Lego game sold like this. So no matter what, Yoda Soda, if it doesn't become the number one overall, it's going to become the best selling in a very long time. So that's good news for Traveler's Tales, WB, and Lego. That's great news. Let me make sure we have no super chats missed. I don't think so. Nope, we're good. We're good. So keep rocking on free questions. Casual Gamer. Why do some games are taking 6 to 7 and sometimes even 8 years to develop? Horizon took 7 years. Cyberpunk 2077 took similar time. Is it hard to develop new IPs in 4 to 5 years nowadays? And Rocksteady and WB Montreal, by the time their next game releases, it will be 8 years of development. Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. Isn't that a bit too much? Yes, it is too much. Or is it industry standard now to take 6, 7 to 8 years to develop new IPs? It shouldn't be, and I know why it happens. Developing, specifically your question here with Casual Gamer, new IPs, it is a giant undertaking to make a new IP. Even sequels right now are taking, 4 to 5 years, and new IPs are taking even longer. It's so freaking hard. We can go into all of the reasons why. I don't want to bore people here, but as gamers' demands for better games go up, that requires way more work, right? We as gamers can't constantly say, I want the latest and greatest, most cutting edge visuals, and I want them in an open world that's 80 hours long, and I want the best voice acting you can get, and I want the most amazing soundtrack that you can orchestrate. We as gamers cannot demand all of those things and expect those games to get out in 2 to 3 years anymore, right? There might be very rare cases that can happen, but most of the time, that's just an enormous amount of work that people were not doing back on the PS1 and PS2 days, right? Where you could make a game with, 50 people. Nowadays, you need, or less. Nowadays, for a AAA game, you need like 400 or 500 people or more on these games. So it just takes a really friggin' long time. Now, in the case of someone like Rocksteady, 8 years flat out is too long. If you're a publisher, you cannot have your developers taking 8 years to make games. And I assure you, WB and even Rocksteady themselves would probably agree with you. We don't know everything that happened behind the scenes on that game, but clearly the development did not go smooth. You do not take 8 years most of the time, even for a new IP, to go that long. So with Cyberpunk, that taking 7 years, we know Cyberpunk's development was very rough, considering the way that game launched. Rocksteady, I would imagine, Suicide Squad was not an easy development cycle. So that's got to be fixed in the future. Rocksteady can't be releasing a game every 8 years, and I'm sure they agree as well. So whether it's engines, tools, getting a lot of support from support studios, I'm not sure, but something like that, that's just not going to fly. That's not going to fly. You do need to get them out quicker than that. Because that makes your business so freaking risky, right? If you're someone like Rocksteady, and I'm not going to say this happens, what if Suicide Squad came out and bombed? You just spent 8 years making a game that commercially failed. Think about that. You cannot risk everything like that. You know what I mean? So, and I'm not saying it's going to. Suicide Squad might be enormous. I'm just saying, what if that happened? You are rolling the dice in a big way, taking that long. So, ideally, I think most companies on a AAA game should hopefully, you should be targeting, we need to get a game out in around 4 years or 5 at most. That should be what you're kind of targeting. 8 years, though, that's not going to work. Okay, Michael, you asking the question that I know is on a lot of people's minds. So let's talk about Horizon Forbidden West. This is going to be a spicy discussion. Some people may get upset. Let's talk about Horizon. Michael Yu. Now that we have PlayStation March's top downloads, do you think it's safe to say Elden Ring negatively impacted Horizon Forbidden West sales? In Europe on PS4, Horizon dropped from number 2 to number 18, which is super steep. The PS5 drops in US and Europe weren't as bad, but still not great either. All right, here we go, y'all. Let's talk about Horizon Forbidden West. Okay. So first of all, I loved this game. I got the Platinum Trophy on this game. And to be honest with you, of every game in a long time in recent years, this was the one I was probably most wrong in my prediction on. You know what I mean? I pride myself that I'm not perfect on predictions because no one can be. If I was perfect on predictions, I'd be a millionaire because I would just be predicting every single success out there and I'd be just rolling in millions of dollars. So, here's the thing. I consider myself doing well if I'm right over 50% of the time. That means it's better than a roll of the dice. This is the one, though, in recent years I was most wrong about. I really thought with how beloved, in a lot of ways, Zero Dawn was, how well it did as a new IP, that the sequel would just blow the first one out of the water in sales. I really felt confident in that. And y'all, I just want to be very clear here. That has not happened. It just has not happened. This game has not blown the first game's sales out. It just didn't happen. So much debate about why that could be. I actually think the data point you point out here, Michael Yu, is part of the issue. PS4 specifically dropped way harder than PlayStation 5. And I think that tells us something we've been long talking about for a while. And there's more elements in this. We're just addressing them piece by piece. The fact that PS4 drop was so severe shows to me that the people that were desperate to play Horizon day one, that haven't gotten a PS5 yet, they came out. They got that game to number 2 right on PS4. But then it collapsed on PS4 specifically in just its second month. That says to me that those people that still haven't gotten PS5s, they still only have a PS4, that weren't desperate to play this game the day it came out, they are willing to wait to get a PS5. So I think the shortage is an element. And I think that data point specifically kind of shows us that, right? I don't have a PS5 yet. I do want to play this game, but I'm not desperate to play it day one. I will wait till I can play it on PS5. I think that data point right there shows us a piece of that. So that's one element for sure. The second one, it can't be denied now. Elden Ring did impact it. There's just zero debate. And how do we know there's zero debate? Because look at these charts. Both these games came out basically at the same time, right? A week apart. Horizon Forbidden West drops to number 8 on the downloads in the US, and it drops to number 9 in Europe. Elden Ring, number 1 still in the US, number 3 in Europe. These games essentially come out at the same time, only a week apart. Horizon has a pretty big drop, and Elden Ring doesn't. I mean, and this is on the same system. This is not, well, this is counting Xbox copies, so of course it sold more combined. No, this is on PlayStation. Elden Ring drops way less. I mean, kind of tells you, right? More people are still out there buying Elden Ring than are buying Horizon. Elden Ring did impact it. Yeah, I think there can be no more debate about that anymore. Did have an impact. I think it's a learning lesson for Sony specifically, and anyone out there. Be careful who you launch next to. Here's the thing. I don't think Sony or anyone expected Elden Ring to be as big as it is. So that probably partially caught them off guard. I think people thought Elden Ring would do well. I was predicting this would be the biggest From Software launch ever, even over Dark Souls 3. And not only did that happen, it completely crushed everything From Software's ever done, ever, and it's not even close. So that probably surprised Sony. You know, they probably felt they were okay launching next to it, and then suddenly Elden Ring becomes this behemoth out of nowhere. So that probably is part of it too, yeah. I would say those to me are probably the two main elements being factored in. Elden Ring and PlayStation 5 shortages. Now, the other question is Horizon Forbidden West a bomb? I don't think it's a bomb at all, to be honest. I mean, it still had a nice launch. Its February performance specifically was pretty nice. It looks like its March performance, though, not great. So the way I would classify Horizon, at least from the data we've seen, which is, this is what I mentioned on Twitter, it seems to me Horizon Forbidden West sold good, but not necessarily great, right? So not a bomb, not a failure, but also not like, oh my goodness, this is broken records and we're like enthusiastic over the moon about it. Seems like it sold good, not necessarily great. And that's probably the main reason Sony hasn't given PR, because I've had people asking me that. It's probably because they don't want people to make those comparisons between the biggest PlayStation launches ever, right? When you look at what God of War did, when you look at what The Last of Us Part 2 did, and whenever you look at what Spider-Man 2018 did, Sony was probably a little worried that if they put that number out there for Horizon, even if it's a good number, that people would be like, yeah, but it didn't come anywhere near your records. Which I can understand why they wouldn't put that out there, right? Because they might be a little nervous about that. I would say if we don't get any data for Horizon still, whenever they give their financial reports here soon, that would be worrying. But I think we will. I think right now they're just waiting for a nice milestone number, right? They probably, whenever they put that number out there, want to have a really good one to say. So they're probably waiting till this thing hits like over 5 million copies or something like that before they say it. So yeah, month number 2 doesn't look great for Horizon. I just don't think there's much way to debate that. It's not a complete failure. It didn't fall completely out of the top 10. It's still in the top 10 on PlayStation 5, but it's not like amazing legs. They're not the legs that you look at and you're like, wow, what an amazing second month. It does not have those kinds of legs. It just flat out does not. It does not. All right, I think we had 2 super chats here come in. Let me see. We did. Oh, 3. 3 super chats. Holy cow. Jeremy here we go with the data. Love it. Jeremy G here with a 2 super chat with some very, very good and interesting things here. Microsoft's Q3 report is April 26th. Sony Q4 is estimated April 27th. So there you go, guys. Those are the dates to keep your eyes on. They're coming up quick. I'll just tell you what I'm expecting from both really quick. Microsoft, I'm expecting them to point out hardware sales for this quarter. I don't know if they're going to give you the exact number, but I think they will really emphasize on the conference call how much hardware is up, because looks like they had really big growth for hardware this quarter. So I think that that's probably what they're going to mention. Like, look at how good hardware is doing. I don't know that they'll give any Game Pass subscriber numbers, to be honest, because I could be wrong here, but I don't think Game Pass has seen significant growth in the last 3 months because there hasn't been any big first-party games. So we have a lot of evidence that first party seems to be what really drives the subscriptions, right? So I wouldn't be surprised if it had some growth, but I don't know that Game Pass has exploded the last 3 months. So you may not get a Game Pass subscriber number. Probably a lot of focus on the hardware result. That's what I think Microsoft will talk about here. Less software and less Game Pass, but really focus on hardware. Sony, software for them probably is going to be pretty good. Because even though it doesn't look like Horizon was a record breaker, it still did sell a lot of units. And they also had, Gran Turismo is actually technically coming out in April, but they might want to highlight Gran Turismo if the sales are good. Didn't come out within that quarter, but sometimes you'll see these companies as a forward-looking thing be like, oh, and also this game's doing really well for us as well. So they may talk about software a little bit. Hardware, it's just not good. It's not going to be good. Whatever they say about hardware is not going to be good, but maybe next quarter. Maybe next quarter will be good. Benji here with a 10. Hi, Benji. Even if we don't talk sales, the enthusiasm for the PS5 is nowhere PS4's peak. For example, the lack of chatter for Horizon 2 and GT7 is surprising. Can't be just the Elden Ring factor, right? This is a great question. So I will say that current enthusiasm around the PlayStation brand, I would agree, if we're just talking online enthusiasm, I would agree it doesn't seem to match like what PS4 was doing at its absolute peak, where it's like the word of mouth and like the feeling on PlayStation was just through the roof, right? Whenever you go back to its like peak years. I actually would agree with that. However, I don't know that we can say raw demand for PlayStation is lower. That is impossible to gauge because there's just not enough PS5s on shelves to see. You know what I mean? This thing was breaking records at launch. It was selling faster than any other PlayStation. So we know at least at launch that the demand was out right there, like through the roof, even ahead of PlayStation 4 whenever it launched. So online opinion, right? Online view of the brand, I would agree. It doesn't seem to be as peaked out as it was, let's say, during like the later years of PS4, where they were just putting out like Ghost of Tsushima and, Spider-Man and God of War, and people were just so in love with the Sony brand. I still think there is a lot of that, but yeah, it doesn't seem as like just incredibly optimistic as it did then. But we can't judge hardware because even though it is falling behind PS4, the main factor there is shortages. So I think it's impossible to gauge like the true demand unless they're on shelves. You know what I mean? There's just none on shelves. So that will be something that it's going to take a while to play out. It's going to take a while to play out before we can flat out say, how is the PS5 going to compare to the PS4 over its full life cycle, right? There's just not enough. There's not enough for us to gauge that yet. But yes, I do agree that the online enthusiasm doesn't seem to be at the PS4 peak. And then a second one here from Benji. Is it time for Microsoft to remove the Halo franchise from 343? We have more than a decade of evidence that they did not deliver the goods. I don't think they can. Like, who else would you get to make it? I actually know some of the people at 343. Not in like a super, like we're buddies way, but like we've interacted on Twitter and stuff and follow each other and stuff. So I don't want to beat up people at 343, but what I will say, if I am going to criticize 343, and I think they know this as well, like I think they're well aware of this, the main issue facing them right now in the Halo brand, they have got to find a way to get content out faster. I mean, they got to. The game's been out for 6 months, and I'm really excited for the new season, right? I'm really excited, really cool. 2 new maps, dude, in 6 months as a live service game. It's not going to fly. It's not going to work for the long-term success of this game. You have to have way more content as a live service game. You can't be doing 2 maps. Dude, that would be 4 maps a year. That is not sustainable for a online focused free to play service game. It's not going to work. I literally, if 343 was sitting in front of me, I could tell them that, and I think they know, so that's why I'm okay saying this. It's not going to work. You have to get content out quicker. Now, how they're going to do that, I do not know. I don't know if it's the engine giving them huge issues and it's just really hard to get new content because they're not a small staff, y'all. 343 is gigantic. One of the biggest developers in the industry, honestly, for like a single studio team. They're huge. People don't realize this, but 343 is gigantic. You got to get content out quicker. You just absolutely have to. You cannot be doing 2 maps every 6 months. I don't know what the answer is. I'm hopeful that the roadmap in the future looks a lot better. I would say 2 maps every 3 months if it's every season moving forward, right? Because we know the seasons moving forward are 3 months each. They're not going to be the 6 months that we had after launch. If you're getting 2 maps every 3 months from now on, that's, to me, honestly, that's not that bad because that's what, 2, 4, 6, 8, that's 8 maps a year. I mean, that's pretty solid, right? If you're doing something like that, 2 maps per season, cool. I think you guys can get away with that. But 2 maps per 6 months, 4 maps a year, dude, that's not going to work at all. And I think they know. So that is the big thing. That is the big thing for them, Benji. I don't think they can take it away from 343 because I literally don't think there's another studio out there that can do it. I don't think that there's somebody that's just available and you can just be like, hey, we're giving you Halo and you're just making this IP now. Like, it's going to have to stay at 343, but the main thing Microsoft's going to have to work with them on, because I feel like Halo was overall well received. Most people really liked Infinite's campaign. Most people really liked the multiplayer. What they didn't like is that this game came out in November for the multiplayer. Keep that in mind. It was all the way back in November for multiplayer, and we're still on season 1. Like, that is crazy. So that's the main issue. They've got to pump content out way faster and way more of it. All right, thank you for those super chats, Benji. Where are we at? We're at an hour? Okay, I can keep going for about 10 to 15 minutes. So we're almost at the end of the chat. Thank you, guys. I didn't know how the questions would be this week because it wasn't a super crazy news week, but we've gotten, I think, a lot of good talk here. So I'm going to go for about 10 or 15 more minutes more, and then I got to bounce because I have to go to work. Eddie Brock, Benji Boy, with E3 2022 canceled, is this the end of E3 as we know it? Could E3 even survive next year, or do you think the ESA will just put the final nail in the coffin and end E3 forever? Well, Eddie, I'm going to talk about this 2 ways. First of all, what do I think will happen and what do I hope will happen? What do I think will happen? I think E3 is probably done. I think so. I think the pandemic really showed a lot of these companies that they can just have their own events, which are much cheaper. E3, the big hidden thing about E3 is it's incredibly expensive. If it was cheap for these companies to attend E3, I don't think E3 would go anywhere. I think E3 would be here forever because, hey, it's just a cheap, free way to market and get the industry together. But the problem is it's extremely expensive. These companies spend literally millions of dollars building these booths and getting everyone flown out there and all of this stuff. It's a lot of freaking money. It's a lot cheaper to just be like, hey, we're going to hire a host for a digital event, get a camera and a small crew to film that host, and then, just have our own employees show up on this feed and just, tell you about their games. I mean, y'all, we're talking a fraction of the price of flying everyone out there, getting the demos to be hands-on, getting, the giant booths built and all the technical know-how. It's just way cheaper. So I think it's not coming back, unfortunately. Now, I hope it does because I've always loved E3. It's meant so much to me. And besides like how important it is like for so many people that like to watch E3, I'll be really selfish. I was wanting to finally attend E3. My social media like kind of came into being during the pandemic. So I was finally going to be able to attend E3 and meet all these people in person, right? There's a lot of people I interact with and follow each other and stuff now in the industry that I never did before. So it'd be amazing to get all together and finally meet these people in person. But I don't think it's going to happen, but I hope so. I hope so, Eddie. Miles Morales, Benji, why do you think PlayStation's new strategy is to have long periods of drought without any significant news or big events until later in the year? Doesn't that hurt the brand? Like, we didn't get a big PlayStation event until all the way in September last year. Why do you think they keep their fans waiting 8 to 9 months until they drop juicy information? Miles, I think it's unfortunately the same reason that Microsoft has had so many issues. I think the pandemic really messed things up. Really did. It's easy to forget now, especially now that we're kind of coming out of the pandemic. I don't want to tell you that it's completely over, but it does seem like we're moving our way out of the pandemic now. That really messed up game development. And you can't show stuff if you don't have games in a place to show. So I don't know that, Miles, that's going to be PlayStation's, plan from now on moving forward. Like, we're not going to show anything until the very end of the year, because that has been, you're right, like how they've been operating recently. And even Xbox, outside of their E3 showcases, they haven't been showing much either, right? They've had like big E3s, but not a whole lot else in the rest of the year. I hope that is going to improve moving forward as people are able to get development back, rolling smoothly and stuff again. So Miles, I don't think it's like a choice that they love. I think it's out of necessity. I just think that they haven't had the games ready to show. You know what I mean? I think we have a super chat here. We do. We got a super chat. JP Donkey's 4 here with a 10. Dude, thank you so much, JP. That's super nice of you, man. Do you think $70 price tags could be affecting the sales of some games? Ooh, great question. Especially during record inflation and gas prices being at record highs. Elden Ring was 60, Miles Morales 50, Call of Duty 70, Horizon Forbidden West on PS5 70. JP, I think we have some evidence to say that it is maybe a slight factor. Now, do I think that the $70 price tag outright is like preventing tons of game sales? I don't think specifically that is like the end all be all, but could it be a factor in this equation? Could be. It could be. $70 is a lot of freaking money. It's a lot of freaking money to ask somebody to part with. So I know it only sounds like a $10 increase, and it is only a $10 increase overall, but it's still $70. So again, do I think that this is one of those scenarios where it's like, if Horizon was 60 instead of 70, it would have sold 2 million more copies? I don't think that. I'm just going to be honest. I don't think it would have sold 2 million more copies if it was $10 cheaper. But do I think it might have sold a little bit more copies, right? As some people are waiting on sales, right? Do I think maybe a few 100,000 more? It's possible. It is possible. We just still don't have like definitive evidence. I think we still need more games to launch at 70, but if this continues, right? Let's say for the next year, all these games that launch at $70, we start to see a bit of a drop off compared to some of their predecessors. It'd be a pretty big red flag. Right now, I'm factoring it as more of like an element, something else in the mix that maybe is, moving things a little bit of the needle, but not like all the way. But it is something we need to keep our eyes on. Yes, we do need to keep our eyes on it. All right, just a few more questions. I'm sorry, I'm not going to be able to hit them all today. Last week, we got lucky, and I hit, I think almost every question. Ain't going to happen this week, and I apologize, y'all. Y'all had a lot of questions this week. A lot of great ones, too. I was not expecting that because it was a pretty light news week. So I thought this was going to be a pretty small chat. Fernando, Benji, which game studios do you like the most? A few off the top of my head. I like tons of them. A few off the top of my head, I would say, some of the ones I did love are some of the ones that are having issues right now. CD Projekt Red. I was a giant CD Projekt Red fanboy with Witcher 2 and Witcher 3. Obviously, they had a lot of issues with Cyberpunk, but I'm optimistic that they can get back on track. So I'll still put them up there, but with a caveat of, hopefully they can have the next game be, smoother. But so I'll put CD Projekt Red up there. Huge fan of classic BioWare. Again, another studio that's ran into issues in recent years, but I absolutely adored the Mass Effect trilogy. Love the Dragon Age games. They've made a lot of great stuff. Love Remedy Entertainment. I absolutely adore Remedy. That's why I'm completely stoked. Control to me was amazing. Alan Wake is amazing. Max Payne's an amazing series. So Remedy Entertainment's going to be up there. Bethesda, like Bethesda Game Studios, like them specifically, you know, the Skyrims and Fallouts, and love their games. I love a lot of the PlayStation first parties. Naughty Dog's amazing. Insomniac is definitely up there. They're incredible. Sucker Punch is amazing. Santa Monica, I mean, a lot. I love a lot of studios. So it's hard. I couldn't even narrow it down to a top 10, to be honest with you, I don't think. But Remedy's up there. Remedy is one of my favorite studios. I'm going to take probably 2 or 3 more questions. Ghost Tunnels. Hi, with Grand Theft Auto 6 taking so long to develop, when do you think Rockstar will develop and release Red Dead Redemption 3? Ooh, long time. 2027, PS6 launch title, LOL. I think that GTA 6 is going to be announced to be launching next year. I have a reason to believe that. And also, I am not the only one to make a statement like that. Jason Schreier has mentioned in the past that he didn't say it was going to happen, but he said he could see Rockstar announcing Grand Theft Auto 6 is coming out next year. Now, do I think it for sure comes out next year? No, because there's a key reason. Rockstar games are almost always delayed. But will I be surprised at all if Rockstar announces Grand Theft Auto 6 is coming out in 2023? No, that will not surprise me whatsoever. Now, do I actually think it makes a 2023 release date? I ain't so optimistic about that. It might be 2024. But I don't think it'll be any later than 2024. Like, that's the latest case scenario, in my opinion, for GTA 6. So when would Red Dead Redemption 3 be? At least 4 to 5 years after that. So not a long time. You ain't getting Red Dead 3 for a long time, to be honest. Let's be optimistic and say it hits 2023 for GTA 6. Soonest you see Red Dead 3, if that's 2023, would be the date you say, 2027. But it could actually even be 2028 if GTA is 2024. It's a long time. Long wait for Red Dead 3. Joe808. Could 20 million copies soon be the new standard for Sony's first-party mainline franchises? No. Nope. We need to see more of their games consistently hit it. Now, their biggest games did, right? We saw God of War get there. We saw Horizon get there. We saw The Last of Us get there. Spider-Man is going to be there. So definitely we've seen some get there. But is it going to be the standard that every game they release is going to hit 20 million? I would say no. We need to see if Forbidden West can even hit 20 million. Because right now, early on, I'm not actually convinced that Forbidden West will ever make it to 20 million. If it does make it to 20 million, I think PC will play a huge role in that. I think PC specifically will have to pull a lot of weight to get this to 20 million. Could happen. So I wouldn't say 20 million as the standard. I would say it's not an impossible milestone for them anymore, right? There was a time where PlayStation games, for the most part, weren't coming anywhere near 20 million. Now it's like an attainable goal. Like, you're going to get some games that hit into that 20 million range. But is it something that we should expect most of their games to hit? No. Nope. Some will, but not like all of them. Gary Sanchez, what do you think is going with Ubisoft? It feels like they're out of touch with what gamers want. With continuing to support the NFT situation, with the stock market following, do you think they will eventually be acquired? Gary, yes, I think somebody will acquire Ubisoft within the next 5 years. And B, I don't know what's happening with them. They were a company, if you would have asked me at the midpoint of last generation, I would have told you Ubisoft was one of the best run publishers in the business. I was very optimistic about Ubisoft's future at the middle of last gen. Boy, has that changed. I don't know exactly what happened there with leadership and strategy, but yes, Gary, they dropped the ball. Hopefully they can turn it back around, but yes, Ubisoft is in a very, very, very precarious situation currently, and yes, I do think, unless they have a big turnaround, which is possible, but unless they seriously turn things around, I think they get acquired in the next 5 years, yes. All right, I think I have to call it there. I do. I have to call it there. I'm so sorry. I didn't even hit half of questions, I don't think, today. Let me make sure I didn't miss a super chat. I don't think I did. I did not. I'm sorry. I wish I could have hit more. I'm sorry for anyone I missed. Any shout outs if there was some awesome people in chat, because I only got like not even halfway through the chat today. I'm so sorry. If I missed your question, I will be back next week. We will be doing this chat next week, so bring your question over if I didn't get to it. Your best bet is to get those questions in early. I know it's tough, but when I post that link, try to get your question in quick. But everyone, thank you so much for a great chat. I did not expect this many amazing questions this week. Subscribe to my channel if you're not already. We do one of these chats every single week. We will be back next week. Follow me on Twitter if you're not already. I'm sure you are if you're here, but I'm Benji-Sales on Twitter. Thank you so much. Stay safe. Play some games, and I will see you either next time here on the chat or I will see you on Twitter very soon. All right, everyone, have a